Welcome to Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by area realtor Jim York and York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information about the local real estate market, featuring leading experts in the real estate field.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Michael York with the York Real Estate Group, and I'm joined today by our host Jim York and his guest Don Ross of Ross Title and Escrow.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Well, Don, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
And, for the viewers that have not seen you or watched the show, could you just give them a little background about yourself?
I've been practicing law since at least 1982. I'm a tax lawyer, I'm a real estate lawyer. I'm one of the owners of Downing Fry. I've been their in-house counsel for 25 years. I have Ross Title and Escrow on the corner of 6th Avenue North and 41. I've done 20 to 30,000 closings. I have my own law firm. I have approximately 8 people working for me. Been with me a very long time, 30 years down to about 4.
Yeah.
So it's a good operation.
Yeah, it's an excellent operation.
Thank you.
They really do an excellent job for our clients.
Appreciate it.
So today we're going to talk about, you suggested a topic of some of the things that realtors, new realtors, or even older realtors should be looking when they're talking to clients, or how to handle clients when they're doing a sale or doing a listing. So, you know, one of the topics I don't know if we should start with this, but insulting clients.
Well, insulting clients' intelligence, and it's not, if I can preface this, you know, this is geared towards new agents. We've got a lot of new agents in Collier alone, probably over 2,000 or so. And it's not localized just to realtors. I've seen it with every profession.
That's right.
When I started out practicing law with accountants, I mean, I can always pick out a new lawyer on the phone. They're trying to score points with their client by being extra contentious for no valid reason. Right. And making the whole process worse for their client, ironically. But realtors in particular, since I deal with so many of them, insulting somebody's intelligence, it's that know-it-all attitude, talking down to people. And when I think of talking down to people, I think of a conversation I had with, actually, when I first started being the attorney for Downing Fry 25 years ago. David Fry was the one who hired me. And after I had been there for a bit, he stopped me in the hallway and he complimented me. And, you know, Don, the reason you do well at this is you don't talk down to the agents.
Right.
And he said, well, why would I talk down to the agents? You send me work. I'd be crazy to talk down to you. And the fact that I just happened to go to law school and you did not doesn't mean I'm any better than you or anybody else. So why would I talk down to people? And that's just, I think, my upbringing with my father. He was a builder. So if you do that with customers, where they're spending a lot of money, they're not unintelligent people. They've acquired that money by being good in some other field,
right.
And for you to act like you're, Einstein in the real estate field, and you're talking down to them, you're forgetting the fundamental rule that you work for them.
Yep.
They're the employer.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not going to get referrals. You may not get that one transaction if you look down your nose at them like, my word, you didn't know that? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, what I normally do with clients is, I try and tell them I'm trying to educate you on, because the laws are different here in Florida than what they are in other states, and it is complicated. It is, the contracts are written by attorneys, basically. So, people appreciate that. I take them through each page, and go over the highlights of it, not every particular item, because some of it might even pertain to that property. So, and then the other thing I think that's important, that's the next thing on our list here, is not listening, because I think, I've seen this a lot, more than people talking down to customers, but I've seen a lot of other real estate agents, even if they're showing property, my listing or whatever it might be, is they're talking like they feel like they have to talk. My attitude is I want to talk about certain things, but I want to listen because that's how I can qualify to help them find a property of their needs and find out what they don't like about that particular property or whatever the case might be.
It's a very difficult thing to learn how to listen, ironically, I'll give you an example. I have a friend, one of my best friends, who was the former director of surgery at a hospital around here, and he gave me this book, and one of the chapters was on how to listen. There's an actual class you can take in San Francisco at a Zen retreat that lawyers go to learn how to listen. The lawyers learn this listening technique so they can be effective mediators.
Right.
And basically the technique is, you say everything you need to say. I don't interrupt you while you're, asking your question.
Right.
I wait till you're done, and then I say, well, Jim, if I understand you correctly, you are asking me blah, 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 blah. Did I get that right, Jim?
Right.
And you say, yes, that's it. Then I answer. And I read the chapter, and I went home to my wife, and I told her, I don't listen correctly. And she said, no kidding. Because my propensity up to that point was, I can see where the question is going.
Right.
There's a lot of preamble that I really don't want to hear, and I interrupt and answer it, especially at work. I mean, when I have 8,000 phone calls, and I'm dealing with one of the ladies in my office, I've heard the question a bazillion times.
Right.
I know where it's going. Just can we get
To the
is the
point.
plane landing at some point? Can you just,
Right.
is there a question in there somewhere? But with your customer. Your wife,
Right.
your loved ones in your life, you got to let them get it all out. Don't start formulating your answer halfway through, because you're not listening at that point. So that to me was a very interesting question.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So I mean, let them. I sometimes interrupt myself. So that's a real good point. Let them vent or tell us what they're asking and go from there. The next question is addressing objections with clients.
You fail to address their objections for a variety of reasons. One might be you don't know how, or there may be a question in there somewhere that you don't know the answer to, and you may be apprehensive about admitting that you don't know everything.
Right.
Again, we're dealing with people who might be doctors, they could be CEOs, they could be CFOs, they could be, they're self-made men or women. They're very intelligent people for the most part, and they can tell when you're glossing over an objection.
Right.
They can tell when you're not giving a straight answer to a straight question. And I talk about this with agents frequently, and I tell them what works for me. Now, everybody has something different, but this is what I was taught when I was a child. If you ask me a question or raise an objection, and I don't know whether there are schools in the district or not, or what the situation might be, rather than just not addressing the objection, just say, "That's a really good objection," or "That's a really good question, Jim.
Right.
I don't know. Can I check it out and call you up in a half an hour or so?"
Right.
And I've done that my entire career, because nobody knows everything.
No.
And I've never had a problem with that. Never. They appreciate the candor.
Yeah, I think they definitely do.
I mean, they really do.
Yep.
They're intelligent people.
Right.
And in fact, it ties in with the talking down to people. I try to put them at ease a little bit by saying, this is what I do for a living. I've done thousands of these. I can't do what you do for a living.
Right.
I couldn't be a doctor or a brain surgeon or whatever they are. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
Please. I mean, this is what I do. I can't do what you do, so don't feel bad that you don't understand something I'm saying. I don't want them apprehensive to ask a question, because then I'm not doing my job.
No, that's true. Well, Don, we're going to take a little short break here, and we're going to be back in 1 minute. Thank you.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Bonita Springs, or Estero? Think of the most experienced realtors. The York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Let's have a look at what the McLeans have to say about their experience working with the York Real Estate Group.
Jim York was our broker in acquiring our present home in Bonita Springs. His knowledge and integrity made the process go very smoothly.
It was a pleasure doing business with Jim York. Everything was done in a superbly professional manner.
Welcome back. Don, our next question here is ignoring stakeholder.
Okay. Well, you don't want to ignore anybody. The closing process, they have to stay involved throughout the entire process. They have to communicate. They have to communicate well. One of the things I see with the new agents, and again, there are so many of them, they might have a job at some local store, and they shoot you an email at 8 in the morning. You answer at 8:15.
Right.
They don't get back to you until 5:30 in the afternoon. So you get either no communication, poor communication, and this applies to the stakeholder, this applies to the bank, this applies to me, you, everybody, and you ignore the stakeholder, you ignore anybody in the process, and the process breaks down.
Right.
People panic. I mean, part of this is it's managing emotions, keeping the whole process flowing, and there's a certain finite period of time to get everything done. And you have to be the one coaching the whole process and monitoring the whole process to make sure everybody's doing their job so that we can have a successful closing and everybody, the buyers get their home, the sellers get their money, everybody gets paid, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, definitely. Communication is probably the biggest thing.
Huge.
It's huge. I mean, and people today in this world, they want instant communication.
Well, they want
you know.
that, and even when I was starting as a lawyer in the 80s, there was a book I read on how to run and manage a small law practice, and the number one complaint against lawyers, and I think it's still the same, and maybe realtors, I don't know, is not returning phone calls.
Right.
So, if I can't return a phone call at my office, I have somebody who returns the phone call, and is this an emergency,
Right.
and is there somebody else who can help you, and so that way the client
Communication.
hears a voice and their needs are being addressed. And in some cases it is emergency and they have to track me down, or if I'm on a plane, then I'll call them as soon as I get off the plane.
Right. The next one is bashing competition.
That's lowering yourself to their level or a lower level. To me, when I see people do that, it's an indication of character. I mean, you're better off saying the positives about yourself and what you can offer. I'm an expert in this area. I specialize in golf course communities like your son does, or you do, or
Right.
your daughter, and you have great statistics analyses of what it lists for and what it sells for and what's the normal turnaround
That's right.
period in each development. So you emphasize your strong points rather than just run negative attack ads like our politicians.
Exactly.
This is what I do. It's just more effective. Plus, I think it just gives you that veneer of this is the type of person I'm dealing with. His character.
And next question here, which is a big one, not filling out contracts correctly.
Oh boy.
So we see this all the time.
Yeah, this thing's been my. It's probably been the number one issue that I've dealt with consistently over the last 30-odd years. In preparation for the show, you gave me some materials. I went to Janet, my office manager, and asked, what common mistakes do you see with new agents? And this really came up a lot. We got the NABOR, and again, we have all the forms here. All the time, I had this yesterday, where they had on the second page, proceeds of a mortgage. Part of the purchase price is going to be from a mortgage. But then you get to the mortgage contingency clause, which is paragraph 4, and they check off cash. So I call the agent, it's a brand new agent, and I say, which one is it? It's inconsistent. You know, it's one or the other. The mortgage contingency paragraph has, you know, the interest rate and the term and all that, but it doesn't have the amount you're applying for. So you're missing one of the material terms of the contract. Frequently with NABOR, they don't plug in the interest rate, and there's no default interest rate. FARBAR, which is prevalent through the rest of the state, you have to fill everything in. At a bare minimum, that makes you read the paragraph. I mean, probably the biggest problem I run into is people not reading the contract, not understanding the contract. If they don't understand the contract, they're not going to fill it out correctly. Common issue, they'll put down the second deposit, but not when it's due. Now, under this contract, that's a nightmare. That's an absolute nightmare, because the only remedy the seller has against the buyer are deposits made. So if the buyer walks away from the deal and all the buyer had down was $1,000, that's all the buyer loses. And if the realtor had plugged in that the second deposit is going to be another $39,000 on a $400,000 transaction, and didn't plug in the date it was due, I think that agent has some problems. I mean, I think the seller could sue the agent. I mean, but I get that a lot. The missing interest rate in the mortgage contingency clause, it doesn't say what the rate will be if you don't plug in the rate. It doesn't say prevailing or market, which I hate either one of those. I mean, the point of the paragraph is to protect your buyer, so pick the rate that they want, that they've been told they would qualify for. But yes, not filling out the contract properly, or filling it out in portions, or not supplying all the pages. It's just, I could go on and on and on about this one.
Well, Don, before we continue here, we're going to take another little short break, and we'll be back in 1 minute.
Thank you.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group associated with the #1 brokerage in Naples, Downing Fry Realty, which produced $1.9 billion in sales in 2014, controlling 43% of all transactions in Naples. Jim, Michael, and Morgan York make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. With over $250 million in sales transactions, they can offer you the expertise and trust you want and need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website, www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Welcome back. Don, let's talk about permits.
I hate them.
Absolutely
hate them with a passion. Again, they've been added to this contract in 2014. Permits are treated as a defective item. They're treated exactly the same as a broken air conditioner, a broken dishwasher, any broken appliance, a leaky roof, things like that. And under this contract, the buyer has 15 days to do their inspection and 20 days from the effective date to ask the seller to rectify it or get a credit. They're doing the permits searches too late. They're falling outside the time period. They might bring up a permit issue 2 days before closing. Too late. Now you have to turn around and explain to your buyer why it's your problem. You have to close out the permit for the air conditioner or the shutters or whatever it might be. So permits are not being addressed correctly, and also permits, all they hear is the word permit, and they don't look behind it to see what it is a permit for. There's a wide range of seriousness on what it's for. Sprinklers are not as serious as a brand new kitchen with a lot of electrical wiring and so forth. It just isn't.
It's not a safety factor.
It's not a safety factor. It's not as expensive. With the sprinklers, I mean, I had sprinklers that were 23 years old and the permit was never closed out. They've probably been ripped out in the past 23 years anyways. So
But are we talking about two different things here? Closing out a permit, that would mean that they couldn't get clear marketable title, right?
No. In this contract, and actually we had a seminar with Old Republic, when was it, 2 days ago?
Okay.
They come down periodically with about 4 lawyers and a lady who gives a presentation, and I get to pick what topic I want, and this was part of it. And we had a discussion on whether or not the contract should be modified to make open permits a title issue, and we were emphatic, no, it's not a title issue, it's a broken dishwasher. If the dishwasher's broken and you ask the seller to fix it and the seller says no, the buyer can decide to cancel the contract or take it as is, but it doesn't show up in the public records. It is not recorded. Permits are not recorded in the public records.
Right.
You have to do a specific search for it. So when I order a title insurance commitment, it is not something that shows up. I have to do something separate
Right, exactly.
to get that.
So I'm just to make this clear for our viewers, if there's an open permit, we have to do that within the 15 days. If it falls outside of that and you find out that there is an open permit,
The seller can ignore it.
the seller can.
The seller can ignore it, and sometimes it's
I didn't know
serious.
that, to be honest with you.
Well,
so, all of them have fixed them for us.
a sign of wisdom. You don't know everything. None of us
Right.
do. None of
Yeah.
us do. We're always
I'm
learning.
admitting it.
No, I learn things every single day. And actually, that's another lesson you can teach people. You meet somebody who says they know everything about a particular topic, I'd be very nervous.
Because the people have always gotten it fixed, or the permit
Yeah, but
closed out. So that's why I never knew we didn't have a bargaining chip there.
It's a bargaining chip, and many times representing a seller, I have conferred with one. I'll give you one example here. It was $1 million condominium. My client was a Missouri attorney, and the buyer was a local doctor. I think I told this story.
Yeah, you did.
It was 19-year-old shutters on the $1 million condo, and I'm representing the seller. Can't find the person who installed them. He had just had the motor redone. The odds of the county coming in and saying remove those shutters are 0,
Right.
or close to it, not measurable. Buyer insisted that that be closed out. Well, the seller tried, couldn't find the company, they're out of business. Forget it, I'll give her a $1,000 credit. Take it or leave it. She took it.
Took it.
So you can, it's nice to have everything tidy, but life isn't tidy. So you have to evaluate, is this a serious thing? It's 19-year-old shutters.
And the next thing we have on here is surveys that you were talking about.
Well, that's standard C in this contract. And again, with new agents, really with any agent, under the contract, the seller is obligated to give a copy of any existing surveys to the buyer within 10 days of the effective date. That's standard C. Now, what they changed, I think in March 6th of this year, was you get the old survey from the seller. You may or may not want to recertify it or do a new one, depending on how old it is, because underwriters don't like them being older than 10 years in age. I still want them, but underwriters don't like it if they're more than 10 years in age. If I have to order a new one, and the technology is better,
Right.
they're measuring from different points than when it was originally platted. They might not be able to find the original markers. I get 1-inch encroachments all the time. I mean, I get a survey issue probably 1 in every 3 to 5 closings. And for the seller to get a variance for that 1 to 3-inch encroachment into a utility easement or a setback, it's an easy thing to get, but it costs the seller $1,000.
Right.
Just the filing fee with Collier County is $1,000. So new agents, I tell the new agents, it's $1,000 to the seller. I know human nature is to just stay on the couch and not go look for it. I mean, I understand that. We're all pretty much the same that way. But if they realize that if I don't go look for it, I might get hit with $1,000,
Right.
they're more apt to go get it, and you're less apt to have a problem, and the closing can go through smoothly, and it'd be a better survey. It's from the original markers. So that's one of the big mistakes we get at the office.
How about filling out applications?
That came from Janet in my office. She came up with that one because 2 days before closing, we'll find out from the condo association that so-and-so has been approved. You call the client and, oh, the realtor didn't give it to me, and oh, do I need to do that? Oh yes, there's a criminal background check, there's a financial background check, and you need references, and they might want to talk to you on the telephone, and some still want to meet you face to face. There's that. And the other pet peeve that Janet hit me with was, you get a contract, we got one today, it was signed in early May, and it closes in 4 days.
Boy.
Okay, now we can get it done.
Right.
But I don't have much of an opportunity to talk to the client and discuss inspection issues that might have already been resolved, and they might have resolved them by agreeing to do something they didn't have to do. So they did it by mistake, rather than, I'm consciously going to give you this extra $1,000 even though I don't have to. They did it thinking they had to when they didn't have to. Now, in many situations, it's a good thing to point out to the other side that, well, I don't have to pay for this, but because I'm a nice person, I'm going to pay this $500 and take care of it. And that, it helps the deal go along better. It keeps the anxiety down. On high-end deals, it shows a certain amount of respect for your purchaser. Somebody who can afford to spend millions of dollars to buy this piece of real estate. There's certain etiquette involved in dealing with people. There's certain ways you want to deal with people in general, and that helps. So, that I got from Janet, the surveys, the filling out the applications, not claiming things on time, getting us the contract too late.
Right.
You're more apt to miss something.
That's definitely right. So, well, Don, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot here, and I hope our viewers have learned a lot. I hope some of the realtors have. So
I hope it's
I'll
helpful.
look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate it, Jim.
Thank you.